Hey everyone, and welcome to another episode of Stitching Tales, a podcast about all things sewing and also what it's like running a sewing business. I am Johanna Lundström, the owner of The Last Stitch, where I create sewing books, sewing courses, sewing patterns, and all type of content that will teach you how to sew better.
My name is Malena, and I work as a freelance pattern maker. And I also create PDF patterns under the name Hazelhen Patterns.
And in today's episode, we're going to start off with a little bit of an update because we left you listeners hanging. We left it with a little bit of a cliffhanger, right, Malena?
Yeah. It was a question of should Johanna release, will she be able to release the Vide trousers? So Johanna, tell us, how did it go?
Yes, did I actually manage to do it? Because it was a little bit risky, I felt, to announce it on the podcast before I've actually prepared all the files. And if you didn't listen to the last episode, I still hadn't prepped, for instance, the Projektor file, so I was definitely cutting it close for my planned release day. I think we recorded the episode on a Tuesday, perhaps, and I had planned to release the pattern on a Thursday. So. And that was last week, so, well, did I release my sewing pattern or not? Hopefully, some of you are already, if you follow us on our Instagram account, Stitching Tales Pod, or over at YouTube, or perhaps you follow one of our Instagram accounts as well, I'm happy to announce that I did manage to release the pattern on time, on Thursday. After
Congratulations!
Thank you. And who knows how many months I've been working with that. I think I said it since April, but I was probably lying. It's been more than 6 months for sure. So it feels a little bit surreal, and it's kind of scary when even though you work with digital files only, so if something is not run right, it's a quick fix, and then you can just update the files and send out a notification to anyone who has bought the pattern that, an update is ready to download. But still, I find it absolutely nerve-wracking to actually say, okay, now the pattern is actually here. You can purchase it because it's been such a long time beforehand. And also, to add to that nervous feeling is the fact that it was 2.5 years ago since I last released the sewing pattern, which was the girly knit top, and I mean that's kind of scary because it's like you feel like you start with a fresh audience because nobody's is kind of expecting a new pattern from me. Maybe never, but I'm still doing it.
It's like such a long time since I'm speaking for myself as well now, since you have done it before. It's like, do I remember everything now? Have I forgotten anything? Like, you don't have the routines that you always used to do because it's so long time since the previous one. So it's always, that nerve-wracking, like, did I forget something obvious now, or have I missed anything? And as you say, like, if there is something wrong with the PDF file, you can just correct it and send it out again. Like, it's not that big of a deal, to be honest. But it feels like your whole reputation is on the line. Like, that one single mistake is going to ruin everything if it happens. And it's like, no, chill a little bit more. I mean, this is my feeling I'm talking about now. But I guess you can relate to it.
Yeah, you're also talking about my feelings. I'm the same person, for sure. Yeah, absolutely. Because it's such a scary thing, and I think I guess sometimes you might have this idea that when you release something, it's all like sparkles and confettis, and you're so joyful about being you're in a celebratory mode. But I think for a lot of us, you're actually quite anxious because you have no idea of the reception or everything's going to work. And maybe someone says, okay, but that's like a dated style, or I'm not feeling this pattern. So yeah, it was definitely scary. And speaking about that, because I use Shopify, which is a big shopping platform that a lot of us in the business use. and I can see there where the websites or the URLs that are where you initially the link the visitor came from, and I had a large amount of visitors from Reddit, which could be a good thing because there are sewing Reddit threads. But Reddit is also a place which is like a very, it's a place where you can feel really free to like be critical and snarky, because it's I think the good thing about Reddit is also it kind of removes you from the context. So I think you say on Instagram maybe there is a more like gentler environment in our sewing community. Of course it's different for where is, but because Reddit isn't linked to a specific sewing community or sewing platform. Reddit and you're anonymous, unlike Instagram, for instance, or Facebook. It's a space where I think it's easier to be like really honest and not like, having your like silk gloves on when you address something. So I have no idea, because I haven't looked up that Reddit thread, so I have no idea if it was like.
Have you dared to look it up, or haven't you actually tried to look it up?
No, I haven't dared to look it up.
Okay.
I mean, I can definitely, I know my way around the internet. I can definitely find it if I wanted to, but I want to be at a good place to do it mentally, because otherwise, because there are like new on Reddit. There are like new sewing pattern releases. So hopefully it's just one of those where people are basically just linking or adding images, and people are commenting whether they like it or not. Hopefully that's what it is. But it could also be like, oh my God, let's go over there and look at the train wreck.
I think I'm going to speak for most people now. I think you can be pretty calm about it. I think it is something like, look at this, a new release, a new pattern. Like your pattern, it's not... I'm going to say this I mean it in a nice way, but it's like, it's a pretty basic, classic pattern. Like how would people have like bad opinions about it, if you know what I mean? Like it's not outrageous in any way, so I think you can be pretty calm, and I think it's a good Reddit thread there. It's I don't think you need to worry.
Yeah. I hope you're right. You probably are. It's so easy, but it's interesting to see how the brain goes, where you kind of what is
like
called
worst scenario possible.
Yeah, exactly. Like you say in therapy, like you catastrophing, like you're pulling like a catastrophic scenario just to protect yourself, and I think that's what I'm doing. And of course, if anyone you listening has actually seen my pattern on Reddit, you can please feel free to share, especially if it's nice. but anyways. It's just so yeah, that was speaking what you mentioned there, that kind of triggered that sort of emotion. So you are a little bit fragile, I think, when you're releasing a product. That's what we're gonna go back to. It's not all that joyful. There is some worries both with the files, are they correct, and also of course the reception. But I will say though that I'm very happy to say that it's gone really well so far. Fingers crossed.
That's nice. And on which platforms do you sell? Is it Shopify? I mean, on your own websites, and do you sell anything on Etsy or?
Yeah, I do. I actually I should say all my sewing patterns I generally also post on Etsy. I sell like 2 sewing patterns a month on Etsy, so I'm not really prioritizing uploading sewing pattern there. So to answer your question, as for today of recording, I have not uploaded the Vide Pants on Etsy. I will definitely do it because I think it's dumb not to do it. I mean, you don't pay. I mean, if you don't sell, you don't. Nah, exactly, because if you don't sell anything on Etsy, you just lose the listing fee. So that's minimal. So all my sewing patterns are on my own platform, which is shop.dlostitch.com. It's just so that's the way I do it. I just to make everything that gives me full control over everything, and it looks really nice and sleek and everything because I use this nice template. So yep, that's what I do. And if people are curious, like how do you get someone to buy your pattern? And my answer is via your email list. Not Instagram, not Facebook, not YouTube, possibly Reddit, who knows? Because I can safely say that after releasing now, if you include my accessories pattern, I think I have about eight or nine sewing patterns. And all of those, the accessories, they come through Google mostly. Like I have sell mittens and knit hats and stuff like that. And the sewing patterns, when you see of the volume where you sell, you can also see that the people that are subscribing to my email list that's where I sell the most sewing patterns of all my marketing efforts. And Instagram is actually sometimes, even though I have a decent amount of following, for context, I have about 13,000 followers on Instagram, which I think is pretty substantial. It's not massive, but it's substantial. I still sell fairly directly from Instagram. I would say that it's not the best sales channels because you have to jump out of the platform in a way that you don't perhaps feel with newsletter or something like that. I have no idea, but it's interesting to see that, and I see that every time I release something, I always make the most sales from my email list.
Yeah, but that makes total sense. I mean, I mentioned this before. I listened to a podcast by Amy Porterfield and Jenna Kutcher, and they talk a lot about newsletters, like that's their priority number one. And they always say that on social media, you are there to be social. People are there to be enjoyed of the content, and they are scrolling. They are not in the purchasing mode. And as you say, they don't. Yeah, like I don't also like click and purchase something. But if you are on your emails, then you are in that more mindset that you are reading news, reading what is happening, reading updates, and then you are more in that mode. Like you're not on your email list to be entertained. Then you are there to do more important stuff, like not just scrolling through your emails. So I'm not surprised to hear that you are selling mostly through emails. I mean, social media, great for like talking about your patterns, definitely, and showing that you have it's out there now and showing pictures, great. But yeah, no, I totally understand that you. And also, if I see something that I want to buy that one, I don't do it through Instagram. I actually go like directly to the website and then buy it. I don't do it in the Instagram app. So yeah, but that's just me.
And I think that makes a lot of sense. Especially, I think both you and I and our target audience are like skewing some, on the upper ages. They are not like maybe in their 20s. I mean, maybe they are in the 30s, but in my case, I would say in the 40s and the 50s. I don't think that they can expect to shop through Instagram, even though there's a feature for that as well. Whereas I think maybe younger people might be more comfortable about doing that. I think we have a different way of we have old habits, they die slowly, or what they're saying, right? And I think that's the thing. We're not really still feel like completely like comfortable about doing that. It feels like a little bit weird, as you say. You're there to be entertained or learn something or just distracted, I agree with you on that we're not really. And also, the reason why you can't shop my sewing patterns directly on the Instagram platform or on the Facebook is because you have to, and that's the same for YouTube as well, if you're watching and you're wondering, is that you have to have at least some physical products in your store in order to be granted the opportunity to start selling products. So there are, so for instance, some sewing pattern companies, they of course have print sewing patterns as well. Maybe they sell their own books, print books, and they can also work around that limit, because then they can offer the digital patterns as well, because they have been approved as an online merchant within those platforms. So, that's the reason why. And I've tried several times, but there's still that kind of gatekeeping if you're just selling digital. Otherwise, I would have done it, because I think it's good to have different shopping options. I mean, for sure, but.
Have you ever thought about selling on like other people's platform, like the fold lines, for example? Have you been thinking about that?
No, I haven't. I mean, I thought about it for sure, but I never, ever. I think maybe I should say that when I released my first garment sewing pattern, I think I did contact the vendors back then, including the fold line, maybe also pattern review, because they also sell. I think those were the two. And if my memory serves me correctly, I think they both had, they want to have more than just one or two sewing patterns. That you can't just say, I have one sewing pattern.
4 or 5 sewing patterns or something.
Yeah, exactly. And I also think back then I could make it, but that was also accessories. And I think that rule is for garment sewing patterns. So I mean, I'm right now up to 4, and then of the fold line, they made like a big like, how should I say, they cleaned out. I mean, they didn't. It became harder, right? Because they had so many companies, and they had to like do some business adjustments as well, right? And to not sell as many. I guess they had a cutoff of number of sales or something like that. So I imagine that it's even harder now. If I contact them and gave them my sales number, they might be like, bye. I don't know. I haven't tried, so.
Interesting. Yeah. Who knows? Maybe I think they would. I think they would be happy to have you. I mean, you still are. You still sell. I used to be on fold lines, but yeah, they removed me. I don't know, some years ago now, because my sales was so small, and which I totally understand. I mean, the administration that must be behind that, and compared to the numbers I made, I mean it. Yeah, from a business point of view, it totally made sense. But yeah, it's interesting to hear what. But as you say, like if you sell on your own website on Shopify, then you are in complete control and everything, and that's of course has its benefits.
Yeah, and you get a larger like cut of the profit, of course, because there's less fees than, of course, if you're using a third-party seller, and I would say Etsy is that as well. Then of course they have to get their money as well, so it means less to you. But that said, I definitely think it's good to be on more platforms, because you will always need more eyeballs, and I think it's very, very tricky to get yourself out there. Without, because if you start by having your own shop and no other visibility, you're going to have to work really hard to drive any type of sales to your website, for sure. I mean, it's tricky.
Yeah, it's the marketing team that we are missing.
Yeah. Okay, where is the marketing team? I'm looking around in the sewing studio, and I still haven't manifested itself. I don't know. Maybe I could hire one of my kids to do it for me, but they hate social media, so I don't think they will be too keen.
Tricky puzzle to solve, that one.
Yeah. You have to work with the limitations that you have, and for me, But I like that you mentioned thinking about third-party sellers again, because I definitely, and I know there are more places out there, and it would be, I mean, if you're listening to this, and both me and Malena are doing sewing patterns and definitely not having ourselves represented in many spaces. So if you have any more suggestions on places that are willing to work with indie sewing patterns designers, that will be awesome, because honestly my scope of knowledge within this, I feel I am very behind on keeping up to date with all the developments in the business. What would you say, Malena, about that? Do you keep track?
It would be so interesting to hear what you guys, the listeners, how do you like to shop? Is it do you shop through Instagram, for example, or is it websites only, or newsletters, or what are your habits basically when it comes to buying PDF patterns, and where do you buy it? Is it the full lines, or is it Etsy? Is it it would be so interesting to hear what other people are, because you're only in your own bubble and you know what you do, but everyone else, what are you? How are you purchasing your patterns?
Yeah, such a great questions. Have you yourself, Malena, bought a sewing pattern from a third-party vendor, or have you bought straight from the seller?
I have bought both, I think. No, I have never bought actually from Etsy. I think I bought everything directly from the designers. Just because I know which ones I want to buy. I go specifically to that person's website, and they have their own Shopify web shop, so I can buy it directly from themselves. I have, for example, I don't have the Shopify. I only sell on Etsy, mostly because it's just so much easier to, and I have so little sale, so it doesn't make sense to go through that administration and set up my own shop at the moment. In the future, I wish to have it, of course, but at the moment, Etsy works fine for me now.
Yeah, it's such a good starter way, I think. Yeah. And you don't have any setup fees. I mean, you can just put up your products, and there's a powerful search engine, and it's I mean, pretty well regarded sellers platform. So you have that confidence level as well. I think people are not scared of exchanging money on the Etsy platform, because that's also something that, of course, you might be a little bit nervous about. I mean, over the years that I have been in this business, and I started actually back in 2008, and I've seen a lot of similar like do-it-yourself independent platforms comes and goes. There was one big here in Europe, the name escapes me now, but I think it was German-based, and it tried really, really hard to provide like another option to Etsy. But after a couple of years, it just threw in the towel. I think it's so hard, and now, of course, again, I could be wrong, but I feel like Etsy has kind of like taken over that market. It's really, really tricky, and because of the confidence aspect, I guess. I'm pretty sure that some people will be hesitant to go on a shopping platform with a name they don't recognize, or they haven't made any purchase on before, they don't have an account, they don't know how it works, they don't know how to access the files. So it's going to be tricky now if a new kind of company came and tried to go into that market. I think Etsy has definitely like taken over
Yeah, no, I agree. It's I mean, they are the biggest one, what I know, when it comes to this area. So yeah.
Yeah, so that was a bit of an update. It became a long update. But yeah, I also want to say thank you to all of you, listeners and viewers. If you have bought the Vide Patterns, I'm extremely grateful, and I feel very thankful that you've given me that you're confident in my sewing patterns and in my designs. So that makes me very, very happy. So I'm super, super grateful, and it means so much. And as we tend to talk about a lot when we do this podcast, how important it is to keep going, that there's someone out there is actually liking the stuff that we do. and also, as we also mentioned in the last episode, it's really hard to, like, you can't really make a living out of sewing patterns. I mean, unless you have a large chunk or are very successful, but it's still so important, to get sales, because that's what keeps you motivated. I mean, yeah, it's very, very, I mean, if one person likes your pattern, that means the world, I think. So again, a big thank you. And we also had another topic, because we're gonna make this smooth transition, where we talk more about pants or trousers, as you say in the UK, for instance. If you don't know it, if you haven't listened to the old episode, we did 2 episodes where we talked about how to sew joggers and other knit pants. And that kind of ties into the Vide sewing pattern, because that's the pants made for knits. But a lot of pants that we sew and wear are made with woven fabric. And we're bouncing ideas, right, Malena? Because that's, I think, is one of the things that people might be a little bit scared of, sewing pants in wovens. Why do you think we are a little bit hesitant about going into that type of projects?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, pants in general, trousers, the fit can be a bit tricky to get right. And as we talked about before, if the fabric is knitted, it has stretch, it has a little bit more forgivingness in the actual fabric, that the fit is not so crucial to be exactly according to your body. Like, you can get by with when you have a stretchy fabric. But yeah, so when you have woven, you usually don't have any stretch, or just a little bit of stretch in the fabric, and that, of course, it's more crucial to have a good fitting pattern than that suits your body. So and also woven pants, of course, they can be pull on if they are like wider and have elastic in the waistband, but then it usually also comes with a zipper if it's a little bit more tight fitted, and a zipper can be daunting for
sure. Yeah,
it's just a lot more steps basically in the sewing process that can be more trickier, and the waistband and everything, belt loops, pockets, all those details. But and I can say I have sewn woven pants. When I was in school, I sewed jeans, and before that I sewed a handful pair of woven pants for myself. But that's like 18-20 years ago. So I can't say with confidence that my sewing skills, any level of skills when it comes to woven pants, are like up to date. So I think you are a little bit more up to date here, because you sewed woven pants quite recently and made some really great blog posts about it, right?
Yeah, right. Yeah, I made a pair of dress pants earlier this year, and I did a tutorial series on the blog, which I would definitely link to in the show notes of this episode. Yeah, I think one big reason for me to sew pants, and I'm sure lots of people can relate, which you talked about fitting, is that it is tricky to fit pants, to make them fit great. But for many of us, it's also extremely difficult to find well-fitting, ready-to-wear pants. Because it can be a very daunting experience trying to get a pair of pants that actually fit all your proportions. I mean, otherwise, sometimes the waistband is too tight, or it's too big, or the pants are too wide, or maybe the waistband sits right, but then it's too big in the hips. Or maybe the hips fit right, but it's too tight in the thighs. And as someone like myself, who is only 160 centimeters, which is 5'3", at least here in Sweden, there is no petite range whatsoever. So you have to make do with the long legs, and sometimes I can also throw off the balance, even if you shorten them. Everything. the knees and everything, it just ends at the wrong spot. So that can also, like, the pants doesn't really look on me the way they are supposed to do, especially if they have some type of shaping. So yeah, that's the main reasons for me to sew my own pants. But yes, as you say, it's definitely not, I would say, beginner friendly when you start, adding like the zipper and the waistband. And maybe if you want to do dress pants, you're doing welt pockets in the back, for instance. Welt pockets is where you have these strips of fabric which we can see on dress pants, for instance. And those are, I wouldn't say that they are difficult per se, but it's definitely nerve-wracking, because you have to also essentially slash open in fabric in the back in order to insert those pockets, and every time you have to cut something open and you don't know how it's going to be, there is always a risk of actually ruining your entire pant project for some type of error. So it's I very much sympathize with the fact that it can be daunting, and for you, Malena, as well. I mean, you know how to sew, but still, pants might not be the one project that you gravitate towards, because it's also time consuming as well, I think. But I like doing challenging stuff. I mean, I thrive on that. I'm not really. I know I love doing quick projects, of course, but I get immense satisfaction of working with something for maybe a week or two, and pants are just like that. So because I think it's a satisfactory experience, and there are so many good tutorials and sewing instructions out there, and also sewing books, especially the kind of traditional sewing books that are very like detailed and instructions. So if you who are listening to this episode are thinking about it, I definitely think it's worth giving a try, but also keep your expectations reasonable for your first pair. Because it is tricky.
I mean, just fitting wise, definitely make a prototype of toiles to try out the fit. And it can be a little bit tricky also, because it also really depends on the fabric. The fit can really be affected by the fabric. So, I mean, you don't want to use your beautiful, expensive garment fabric to your toiles, but you kind of need some similar fabric to get something. To get any feedback from your toile, and also to make, as you said, welt pockets, zippers. I really recommend, if you have never sewn that, try out first on just a sample, like small scrap pieces. Like, don't make a whole pair of pants and sew it directly. Like, no, I would definitely make just a mock-up, just to try the technique and just to get a little bit of experience and how it actually is done, because it's a lot of steps, a lot of different techniques used. So practice on other fabric first before you go on your real trousers. And it sounds, I mean, I hate not just going straight for it, but sewing, it's a process, and we need to practice. It's really tricky to get it perfect at the first try. Yeah.
Oh yeah, absolutely, definitely. So you be kind to yourself, and also maybe start. I mean, maybe you shouldn't, on your first pants that you use, that you add welt pockets, for instance, maybe you can skip the back pockets and just do front pockets, for instance. Even if the pattern calls for welt pockets, it's perfectly fine to skip them if that gives you some anxiety. Because, I mean, sometimes sewing do. So I think that's also really good to build your skills slowly in that regard when it comes to pants, because, as you say, just getting the fitting right, that's a whole thing in yourself. But the good part about that is that once you kind of have figured it out, and at least if you're doing a similar sewing pattern again, using a similar material, you will be able to gauge, I think, a lot of things from that like basic fitting process that you did with the first pattern. For instance, I now know exactly how my crotch curve should be shaped. And it's so interesting, because sometimes I get this idea that I'm going to start all over, and then I repeat everything. And it's so funny because once I've done and I spent hours, trying to fit and adjust and fit and adjust, and then I just placed that new crotch over my old sloper pattern, and it has the exact same shape. So I'm like, okay, wasted a lot of hours here. but it also gives me like a good boost of confidence to see that there is the way that the crotch should be shaped on my body to sit right and for everything to hang right, and it's a little bit different shape than on the basic pattern. So I do find it, I would say it depends on the style as well. If you're doing, say, like palazzo pants or straight pants, for instance, like a simple linen pants that are very like wide in the legs, there will be less fitting issues. But if you're doing more like a cigarette pant or dress pants, and even if you use like stretchy woven fabric, you still will have more areas that, that you need to nail the fit. And the waistband, I think, is also crucial. I mean, especially if you end up having it too tight. And I love wearing a belt myself, but a lot of you maybe not want to wear a belt, and then you have to get the waist right. I mean, you don't want it to drop off you, like you end up having pull-on pants accidentally. Or is that every time you eat, you feel like your stomach is getting like strangled. So, I mean, I think that's also really, really important to check your own measurements, because we have so many different shapes on our waist, and also depends where the pants end up on the waist as well. So I think that's like a very, very important thing to get right too.
Yeah, and it's a really good point that if you find a pattern and you've done some alteration and it's like, this is fitting me really well, use that pattern in future projects as well. Like, even though you see a new pattern that has really nice detail, I mean, you can buy that pattern, merge the fit from your previous pattern and take the details from the new pattern. That is, I think, would be almost the easiest. I mean, if it's kind of similar in the silhouette, I think that would be the easiest way to keep that good fit that that suits you well, but get new details from some other patterns and get those instructions. So don't be afraid to mix and match and merge different patterns.
Yeah, definitely. That's such a good point. I think that's going to save you a lot of time as well. Because it is, otherwise you have to start from scratch every time you try to sew a new pair of pants, and the styles are different. I mean, also, to come back to the waist thing. I mean, if the waist on the pattern ends up on your natural waist, which is a specific point, and a lot of us are a little bit more narrow then of course it's going to be one measurement. But if the waist is dropped, for instance, you're going to be wider over there because it's going to sit more on the tummy. So then you have to figure it out, like how should it sit there? It's not the same measurements. I mean, most people aren't straight, like this. I mean, most people have some area where you're a little bit more narrow or a little bit more bulging. So I think that's also like to see that, to think that the waist will not end up on the exact same spot every time you sew a pattern.
Flashbacks to a conversation I had with a client that yes, we have the waist measurement on the website for you to measure your body and choose your size, but then the trousers, they didn't have that measurement. And I was like, no, because the trousers, they are not in the actual waist, and like they are placed a little bit lower, and then obviously the waist on the trouser needs to be bigger compared to your actual waist measurement. Like it gets a little bit confusing, obviously, when the waist on the trousers are not placed on your actual body waist, and you also need a little bit of easy movement and like those kind of things, so or compensate for the stretch of the fabric. So it's like, those measurements are not, they are not supposed to be the same. So but it's flashbacks.
Yeah, it is tricky. It is tricky. And that same question came from I got an email the other day from someone who was because I on my like product description for the Vide Pants, I both have the measurement chart, like the body measurement chart, and as you say, there's a waist measurement, which is the natural waist, and then the Vide Pants, they sit a little bit lower in the front, so they start at your natural waist in the back, and then they go down a little bit. So and that circumference, because of that, is substantially longer than if it sit really straight up in the waist. And she was asking exactly that question, like, oh, why is the difference so like substantial? And I tried my best to explain it, but it was also really good feedback, because that made me realize that even though I say in like the pattern description that where the waist ends, that it ends below your natural waist but above the belly button, I can see why it could be confusing. So I did add.
Course. It's the same name, like waist on trouser and waist on bottom. It's like
exact.
But it's not placed on the same place.
That is not the same, exactly. So I did add that to the instruction and the size chart, like a little asterisk at the garment measurement waist, where I explained where it's at and why it was longer. So hopefully that will make more sense. That's a very good point, that we also have to like make sure that we explain in a well, because
we communicate it in a good way to make it clear for the customer if these trousers are meant to be in the actual waist or if they are placed a little bit lower, because this is, obviously personal opinion where how high you want to place your trousers, like where do you want the waist to actually be. And here I know I'm in the majority, unpopular opinion. I don't understand trousers that are in the actual waist. I think it's torture. It is so uncomfortable. I can't wear them. It's just no, not my cup of tea. I know a lot of other people are like, but it's they say they're comfortable for them, give them support, and it's like that's not how my body is built. I need to have not low cut as in the 90s low cut trouser, definitely a little bit more higher than that. Yeah. But no, I'm more towards a lower waist. And again, this is just personal preferences. So it's nothing right or wrong, it's just what suits you and where do you want to have your waist placed. And maybe you need to adjust the pattern a little bit to accommodate what you're like, what your
exactly.
opinion is.
Yeah, exactly. You bring up such a good point, and you're not alone, Malena, because I am the exact same way. I absolutely it's so unpleasant for me to have pants that sit at my natural waist. And it's interesting because about my body, the way I am constructed is actually that my waist is actually relatively narrow compared to my tummy, because it's a little bit fuller, but still I don't like the feeling. So it's not that it's too tight, it's just that I guess I would fit well because my waist is relatively narrow, but I hate it, and I feel like there's no room, because what's good about when the waistband is a little bit further down, that also means that it is a little bit wider, so you almost adjust it a little bit on your body, where you want it to sit right now, or how you're feeling that day, or if you're obviously every time we fluctuates for one reason or another, so it's so nice to have that kind of room to adjust where it sits right. And what I'm thinking now, we're definitely going to do a poll on this, both on our Instagram account, and also if you listen to Spotify, we've actually done on Spotify, there is actually a quiz or a poll function as well, so I've done that a couple of times now. So if you go and you listen to Spotify, we're going to definitely add it there as well. We can put a vote, natural waist or slightly below natural waist. And of course, when you see the 90s, that's a completely different thing. There's a lot of space between that kind of below belly button. So, you have a lot of space. And I prefer to sit above the belly button at the front, but still at least like 4 or 5 centimeters below the natural waist or something like that. That's and that's also, if you get the Vide Pants, that's where it sits, by the way. but so that's really interesting to hear, and especially now, I guess for you, Malena, it's tricky because the way the fashion has been so high waist, right, with jeans and everything. everything sits so high up.
I bought a pair of jeans also in store, so it has not been a problem for me. I'm wearing my field pair joggers at the moment as well. So yeah, no. I skipped the whole jeans phase totally.
Okay, that's good, because I think now when you look at the runways, there is definitely a trend now, going back to the 90s. So I think I don't think we, at least not for people in our age, is going to be like a huge hit with those low.
You can't
low
again, like no, please, that we can leave in the 90s, like
yeah.
Yeah, that was a little bit too extreme for me. But one thing, like just fitting construction wise, that is good to have keep an eye on, that if you are having a trouser that are high waisted, like the waistband is placed in your natural waist, then you can have the waistband straight. But as soon as you have it a little bit lower compared to your natural waist, the fit is going to be so much better. Now I'm talking about like tight fitted pants, not like pull-on palazzo trousers, but like regular fitted pants. Then a curved waistband is going to be so much more helpful. It's going to fit you so much better, because when you come down a little bit from the natural waist, the body is more shaped usually like a cone a little bit, like it's more narrow at the top and a little bit wider at the bottom, and that the waistband should reflect that shape, so it should be a little bit curved. So that's just a good thing to have in mind, that if you, where is the waist placed, and is it lower and then it's a straight waistband, then like that's a little bit of a like red flag that the top of the waistband might start to gape a little bit then. Yeah. And so that's just a good thing to keep in mind.
Yeah, very, very good point. And it will, especially in the back, I think, because it won't like follow your natural like curved in the back. As you say, it's going to stand out, pretty much in the back, unless you're again super straight, but nobody is. So yeah, that's a very good point. And by the way, in my book Sewing Jeans, I show how to turn a rectangular straight waistband into a curved waistband. It's very easy. It's just like a slashing technique, which you learn when you're doing pattern making. And that really helps a lot, because as you say, the shaping. So if you get a pattern, as you say, Malena, with a lower waist and the waistband is still straight, you can definitely just do a pretty quick alteration. And regardless if you get my book Sewing Jeans or if you see a pattern making book, you can usually see the method for how to do that. And yeah, I'm a big fan of a curved waistband as well. I totally agree with you. I also, another thing about doing a curved waistband, which I love, is that because a curved waistband is cut slightly on the bias because of the curve, obviously, so a part of the fabric will be cut kind of on the slanted. That means that even if it's a woven fabric without stretch, you will get a slight bit of stretch, and that's actually quite nice, because you do want to be comfortable. Even though you're wearing like a woven pair of pants, you still want to feel comfortable. And I really like the fact that there is slight give in the waistband, which is another big benefit, I think, of doing a curved one.
Yeah, so true. Yeah, and here's a really good. Also, we said this when we talked about knitted pattern trousers, that you always need to make sure that the stretch, you have enough stretch for the pattern. Like the pattern usually say that this is for a fabric with 30% stretch minimum or something, and this is also really good to keep in mind for woven patterns, that some patterns are made for fabric that has a little bit of a stretch. The stretch could either be mechanical, like it's woven, it's weaved in a certain way so it still has a little bit of give, or it has like 2 or 5% spandex, lycra or something elastan, so the actual fabric is stretching. So just also keep in mind that you have the right type of fabric compared to your pattern, so they are a match, because some woven fabrics, don't have any stretch at all, so then the pattern needs, of course, to be according to that. And I actually saw on the fold lines they had a post about it. I will send you the link so we can add it on the YouTube comments. They had really great. I think they had like 10 different woven patterns that they suggested for like different styles, and they had like one more easy version and one more not complicated, but what do you say, like more like, you know,
advanced,
like a little bit more detailed, and it was really interesting to see like all the different styles, and they were, I mean, some beautiful patterns there. So definitely check out those suggestions. And it was really good also to like give that like, this is a more easy make, this is more advanced make if you want to level up your sewing.
Yeah, that's such a good way. Yeah, they do a really good job of that, curating things, like, because you have so many options today. I mean, we're definitely going to link this also in the show notes of the audio version, because it's so overwhelming. I mean, it's nice to have someone who's curating, and I think today there's so many pants pattern out there, so you're definitely going to find something that will work for your skill level or preference for sure. I mean, that's really, really good. And as you say, the stretch, because some of this, if you're doing more like a cigarette pant, for instance, that is made for stretch fabric, if you use a woven fabric, it's going to be really, really uncomfortable, because, you know, the stretch adds quite a substantial amount of stretch. I mean, especially when you're moving and everything like that. So you have to, as you say, Malena, you definitely have to get it right. I mean, I guess the opposite could be more true, that you could, but I would also argue, because sometimes like when you add like a lycra stretch or a spandex stretch, it also changes the hand of the pant a little bit. So if you want to do like a wide like palazzo pants, for instance, you definitely need to pick a fabric that has more softness to it, and maybe a bit more lightweight. I mean, say like tencel or linen or rayon fabric or something like softer. It's not going to work with like a cotton lycra pant fabric, because you don't get that beautiful hang or drape. So it definitely depends on what you're doing.
And you have actually sewn a pair of pants now quite recently. When you shop for fabric, what are you looking at? What are you searching for?
I'm searching for good quality fabric for sure, because again, sewing pants, it's really time consuming. I mean, even for me, and I'm a pretty skilled sewist, but it still takes a lot of time. So I definitely want to make sure that it's a really good quality fabric. I would actually say, which is expensive, but actually one of the easiest fabric to sew with is actually wool, like wool twill and wool flannel, because it's so how should I say, it's easy to work with, because it's stable to work with. It falls beautiful, it hangs beautiful on the body, but it's very easy to work with. For instance, some fabric has a tendency to grow when you're dealing with them. For instance, cotton twill is one of those fabrics. For instance, like say a chinos fabric or whatever, it tends to like expand both when you're working on it and if you're wearing. So even though it fits nice in the bum when it's like freshly washed, it might, expand. So I try to work with really good quality fabrics for sure. I would say, I'm not scared of having something with polyester in it. I think a lot of dress pants fabric has usually a mix of, say, rayon and polyester, for instance, maybe a bit of lycra. There is always a risk of pilling, I think, but the good part with those are also easy to sew. You don't have to iron them too much, and if the quality is good, it's actually really a durable way, and it doesn't wear down, because cotton, it tends to wear down with wear, especially inside the ties, because there's usually a rubbing, so it's not as durable. But yeah, I would say most of all I do sew a lot of cotton twill or wool. Those are probably the one I like the most.
What was the quality on the cigarette pants that you made? That you made a blog about?
That was a cotton twill fabric that I bought from. There's a wonderful store. I'm definitely going to link to that in the description section as well. It's called Italienska modetyger, which is Italian fashion fabrics. Yeah, because I live in the second largest city in Sweden, and in the outskirts of that there is a wonderful store that goes to Italy and buy like dead stock fabric remains from big designers. I don't remember, but it was definitely one of those bigger brands that we all know of. And so far it's held up really, really well. It hasn't lost its shine. Of course, when I wear it, it kind of, it like the back, the bum, it does expand a little bit because it is cotton. It's a natural fabric. It just the way it deals with. So I was super happy with that fabric, and we're going to link to that as well if you want to see what I'm talking about. You can see and I used the bird style pattern, which I have fitted and done maybe 4 different pants over the years. Yeah, so if I find the patterns that I like, I just keep doing it because it's such a hassle to do the fitting again.
Yeah, and it's so easy to, design and do updates yourself to the actual style. Choosing different different fabric or doing the details a little bit different. So even with the same basic pattern, you can still get a totally different outlook depending on all those things.
Yeah, for sure. I think we're going to try to round up now. We're definitely going to do a follow-up episode. So we talked now a little bit about fabric choices and, of course, the most important thing, getting the fit right. And we're going to dive deep more into this topic in another episode. And we're also, of course, going to talk about the assembly methods. And if you watch the video version of this podcast, I'm definitely going to make sure that when we go into the sewing stuff, I will also show you inside the pants. The pants we're talking about right now, I think I'm going to bring so you can see also where I talk about all the steps and things like that. Because there's a lot of things to think about. And hopefully we have encouraged you to, if you haven't already, to maybe think about sewing your first pair of pants. And also remember to vote in our poll, natural waist or below natural waist. We're going to see, it's going to be really interesting to see because I have no idea how this poll is going to go. So it's going to be really exciting to see.
Yeah, absolutely. And I got a little inspired. Now I'm feeling like, ooh, I want to make a pair of woven trousers. I'm not going to do it, unfortunately, but I got inspired, definitely. I would like to have one of those pair of pants. It's just, they look so nice.
Yeah, it does. It really, really does. So, yeah. So we're going to see, maybe, who knows, in 2 years' time, who knows, maybe Malena has sewn her first pair of dress pants in decades, possibly.
Maybe. 2 years, I like that kind of a deadline as well. It was like, that sounds actually manageable.
Yeah. That's a good thing about this podcast. You know, you don't have to feel any type of like stressed or when you listen to us, because we are always talking about, things that we think we want to do, and then we keep postponing it and then until we're finally done. So there's no rush of doing stuff. So if you haven't jumped into the pants sewing ocean, you have all the time in the world to do it. So hopefully at least we gave you some ideas where you can start. Yeah, so thank you so much for listening. I am Johanna Lundström.
And I am Malena Hjerpe. Bye bye.
Bye bye.